our viewers to those 14 clauses of the MOU that has been agreed upon between Tehran and Washington, and this is obviously as per Iranian sources, because as of now they are the only people who are talking about the various facets of this MOU that is likely to be signed on Friday. So let's look at some of those points that Iranian media has highlighted, and this is a 14-point MOU, and please remember that this is only as per Iranian media reports. So the number one point that they are stating is that the permanent and immediate halt of war on all fronts, including Lebanon. So Lebanon remains a sticking point between Washington and Tehran. Tehran has said that it must see peace in Lebanon as well. Second point is that the US commitment not to interfere in Iran's internal affairs and respect the country's sovereignty. So Iran is also stating that US cannot now interfere in how the country is functioning. It is an independent sovereign nation, and that's how it wants to stay. US cannot come in and implement their own rule of law. Let's look at point number 3, the complete lifting of the Hormuz naval blockade within 30 days. So now we know that US President Donald Trump has put out a social media post saying that the Strait of Hormuz is open to all, the shipping lanes are open to everybody. Iran wants a firm commitment from Washington that yes, this is going to take place and that no more blockades are going to take place over the next 30 days as well. Number 4, a US commitment to withdraw its forces from the area surrounding Iran. Now this is also a very essential point, because it will look at US forces, say for example in Jordan, in UAE, wherever they have bases in the region. Now Iran wants US to withdraw these forces. However, remember that CENTCOM remains a very important part of the American deployment in global affairs. So this is also going to be a sticking point, and we are going to see if this is something that the US agrees to. Let's look at some other points that are coming to the fore, which is reopening of the Strait of Hormuz within 30 days under Iranian arrangements. So they are saying that the Strait of Hormuz will obviously be reopened, but there are certain Iranian arrangements that need to be taken care of as well. And what those will be, that will be announced publicly after the deal is signed on Friday. Let's look at point number 6, which is suspension of oil sanctions and Iran's full access to the financial proceeds from them. So obviously Iran, this has also been a point that Iran has been seeking from Washington. They do not want sanctions on their oil, and that's what Iran has stated has been agreed on in this MOU. They are also saying that all the proceeds from that should only come to them. Let's look at point number 7, which is US and its allies to present reconstruction plans for Iran worth at least $300 billion. Obviously, Iran has suffered a lot during this phase of war from Israel and from the United States, and they are saying that they need a reconstruction plan in place of almost $300 billion. They are saying that this has been in fact agreed upon. Let's look at point number 8, 60 days of negotiations to reach a final deal based on nuclear issues and complete lifting of primary and secondary US sanctions. Now remember that Iran is calling it an MOU, not a peace deal as of now. They are saying that this MOU will lead to a 60-day period of ceasefire where all these parties will come together and decide on the future, which is nuclear deal. This is something that Iran, Washington have drawn red lines on, and they are also looking at making sure that there are no more sanctions that are put in place for Tehran. So let's look at point number 9, which is Iran's reiteration of its commitment under the NPT not to produce nuclear weapons. So under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, Iran is saying that it will remain committed to not going in possession of or producing nuclear weapons. So Iran is saying that we are committed to that and we will make sure that that does not happen. However, their right to enrich uranium has not been mentioned by them in here. Let's look at point number 10, which is US to not add to its forces in the region and not to impose any further sanctions during negotiations. So, if negotiations are going on for the next 60 days, so we are looking at around 2.5 months, 2 months. If during that phase there are no sanctions in place, if the US also does not deploy more forces to the region, then Iran will think about going forward with a final peace deal in this region. So, these are some of the points that have obviously been mentioned by the Iranian media reports, which are or likely to are feature in this MOU. Let me in fact go across to Group Captain Devnath, who continues to be with us for more on this. Group Captain Devnath, we obviously saw some of the points. This is as per Iranian media reports. US is not, US obviously remains tight-lipped about such commitments, because this seems like a win-win situation for Iran. They are getting their frozen assets released, they are getting their in fact oil sanctions and other sanctions lifted, they are also getting the Strait of Hormuz reopened. So, it seems like a win-win for Iran, and that is why they seem to have put out these points that are likely to feature in the MOU. Group Captain.
Definitely, these points are almost, in fact, ditto same points were given by Iran during talks before the war started on 28th of Feb, when talks were on in Muscat. That time also similar points were raised by Iran. Then talks were on in Genoa. That time also similar points were on. Fact remains that some of these points are very complicated. Easiest point is to open a Strait of Hormuz. U.S. Navy commander has to get just a phone call. Don't fire. Similarly, as far as Iranian IRGC Navy is concerned, he has to just receive a phone call from his political master saying, don't fire. A very easy opening of Strait of Hormuz. They will clear the mines, they will work out the working protocol. Uh, but some of the issues are very complicated. Will US ever be in a condition to remove US forces from Gulf countries or from West Asia? Never. In last 30 years, they have pumped in billions of rupees, billions of dollars to build up this Army, Navy, Air Force bases. Their aim, initial days, 40 years ago, 30 years ago, their aim was to keep the Russian influence away. Now USA needs these bases in West Asia to keep the Chinese away. USA knows that Chinese have already made their ingress in Gulf, in West Asia, and USA will never move out these forces, anticipating further Chinese influences in West Asia. Also, these Gulf countries, they don't want US forces to move out. We have to remember that Gulf countries, there is no true democracy. Most of them are kings and sultans and prince and shahs and amirs. They want a control over their population. They don't believe their population, and their population also does not have any good view about their rulers. Dynastic rule. So US troops positioned in these countries give internal stability to the ruling dynasty. So it is very essential. It is very essential for USA's perspective that they never move out. Yes, what Iran will finally push for, that these forces will never be, these US forces in West Asia will never be used against Iran. So Iran also understands that America will maintain these forces to counter China in decades to come, but Iran will take an assurance from USA that these Army, Navy, Air Force bases in West Asia, in Gulf countries will never be used against Iran in future. That will mitigate Iran to some extent. See this issue of frozen assets, very complex issue. Since 1979, USA has been encouraging its allies also to freeze Iranian assets. Now, Iranian assets, the business on the book is very complex.
Right.
There are Iranian individuals whose money is stuck in US. There are Iranian companies whose money is stuck in US. And to start with, there is Iranian government money, Shah of Iran. who used to sell diesel, petrol, kacha tel, that dollar by law he had to keep in US banks. So
All
it
right.
is very, very complex issue.
Absolutely, absolutely. Group Captain Devnath, thank you so much for your valuable perspective on this issue. With that, viewers, we are also getting to know